everybody, welcome back to the channel. Haven't done a video in a couple weeks here, but I've been meaning to do this one for a long time. So if you have watched videos on my channel before, you know I do price analysis on Silver Age comics, Bronze Age comics, Copper Age. I do years in review, but I've never done a Golden Age review like this before. And the main reason is because when you look at the biggest of the Golden Age books, they rarely sell. And so it's hard to get data, and it's hard to look at them on a month-to-month basis. You just can't, like I do in my other videos, because some of these books don't sell for years. So anyway, I've made an attempt to do it, and I've taken the biggest DC Golden Age keys, you can call them grails if you want, in existence. So I am talking about books like Action Comics #1, Detective Comics 27, Superman and Batman #1, All-Star Comics #8, which is the first appearance of Wonder Woman. And we are going to look at prices over the years. And here's how I split it up. Again, because there's so little data to work with, I decided to break the past, 6 years or so into two portions. So we're going to take everything during the COVID boom, so to speak, 2020, 21, 22, when prices were going crazy. And we're going to look at those books in those same grades that have also sold after that. So 2023, 24, 25, even into 2026, if we have some data. And you're going to be a little bit surprised, I think. But the reason is because, again, with my other videos, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Copper Age, we've seen dramatic price drops in these books over the past few years, right? Everything from 2023 on, almost everything has been dropping in price. And when you look at my 2025 year in review video, even though prices still dropped in 2025, there was some slowing down, even some stabilization to some degree, but overall things are still dropping. What a large majority of people have been saying is this probably isn't happening with Golden Age. Don't you know, Golden Age is strong. Golden Age is just going to keep going up in value. Those big keys will never drop like Silver Age and Bronze Age because there are just too many of those books. Golden Age is harder to find, so their value is protected. So again, you're going to be a little surprised with what you see today, but also keep this in mind. I am just going into Golden Age superhero books right now. There are lots of other genres in the Golden Age, right? There's horror, there's romance, there's mystery and crime. So we aren't touching on that. And I think those stories may be a little bit different than the story I'm going to tell today. But nonetheless, we are going to get into the biggest keys of the Golden Age for DC, and let's see how they did. Starting off, Action Comics #1. I know what a lot of you are going to say. We just had the biggest comic book sale in the history of the hobby, and Action Comics 9.0 sold for $15 million. It was a private sale, and it was a record breaker, right? No book had come close to 15 million before. So you're saying, how can we say Golden Age is not strong? We just had a record breaker, most expensive comic book ever. Well, we never had a 9.0 sold before, right? First appearance of Superman in a 9.0 never sold, at least on paper, right? When you look at GPA, these are all GPA data points. We didn't have a sale. So back in 2021, what would a 9.0 have sold for? Would it have sold for 20 million? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So the only grade for Action Comics #1 that we can look at today is a 3.0 because we had a sale in 2021, and that sale was for $1.6 million. So again, during the height of the COVID boom and lots of money going everywhere, lots of investors coming into the hobby, we did not see another sale of a 3.0 until 2024. And that book came in at $960,000. So if you're doing the math, 41% drop on a 3.0. And that's the only data point we have that had a sale before and after in these time frames we're talking about. So again, just one data point. And does it mean that all the other copies that sell from here on out are going to be less than the previous sale? No, it does not mean that. It just means with this one grade, there was a 41% drop during the last two sales. All right, so that's it. Action Comics #1. Let's get into Detective Comics 27. What is this? First appearance of Batman, right? The Caped Crusader. Likewise, we've only had one grade that had a sale before 2023 and after 2023. And that grade was a 4.5. So that book sold in 2022 for $1.1 million. And we didn't see another sale again until 2024. And that came in at $675,000. So coincidentally, another 41% drop. Now we've had some other sales, and I think this is notable. There was a 3.5 that sold in 2025 for $1.1 million. So why did this 4.5 sell for so much less? Well, if you go back and you look at the details of the grades, I didn't look to see if these were different books or the same book that had this big price drop. But sometimes you'll see investors or people with a lot of money might look at the condition of a book, like not all 4.5s are the same. So again, I didn't look to see if they were the same book or not. I know for the Action Comics, they were two different 3.0s, and they all had their own same type of problems. But for this 4.5, the data is what it is. Big drop. Okay, moving on. Next book, Superman #1. We're kind of bouncing between Superman and Batman here, and you'll see based on what the next book is going to be. But anyway, Superman #1. Yes, a huge key. Not really a big first appearance of anyone in here, right? It's the origin of Superman retold. But good news is we have 4 different grades that we can do comparisons on here, right? And hopefully we see some positive news. Again, not to spoil the punchline, but it's not so good. All right, so first grade we have to talk about is a 7.0, sold in 2021 for $2.6 million. Had another sale in 2024 for $2.3 million, a 10% drop. Next grade, 5.0. So we're going to go down in grades here. Sold in 2022 for $720,000. Sold again in 2024 for $504,000, a 30% drop. And then a 2.0. Sold in 2023 for $260,000. And then the next year in 2024, sold for $196,000, just under $197,000, 24% drop. And finally, the last grade on 1.8, back in 2022, sold for $288,000. Didn't sell again until 2025 for $156,000, 46% drop. Superman #1. This isn't all coincidence, you guys. Like Superman #1 dropping in value in all grades. Now, another thing to keep in mind, we did have a 9.0 that sold the end of last year for over $9 million, and an 8.5 just sold this year for $7 million. So those high grades, if we had before and after data like that on those books, again, just like the Action Comics #1, we don't know. We don't know if it would have sold for more back in 2021 or 2022. But those are big sales. And those high grades may be treated a little differently than some of the mid-grade or lower grade books, right? Maybe some of those higher grades will keep going up in price because the big pockets are looking for those things, right? So again, we're just dealing with the data that we have. All right, so let's move on. Batman #1. Again, bouncing between Superman and Batman. You guys will be happy. We finally have a little bit of good news here. 9.4. We talked about those big grades that are selling, right? So here's an example. Batman #1, a 9.4 back in 2021, sold for $2.2 million. And we just had one sell at the beginning of 2026 for how much? $6 million. That's a 170% increase from 2021 to 2026. And that's what I'm talking about. When you get into these higher grades, like all bets are off, right? The trends aren't always followed. You never know what can happen on these. And I believe that was a private sale as well. Okay, so somehow GPA gets their hands on this data, even with private sales, even though they're not auctions. A little bit odd to me because I don't know how you verify private sales and things like that. But again, right, it's good to know when they happen, and it's good that we're tracking it. Okay, so the 9.4, good news there. Let's go to the 8.0, another really high grade. Sold in 2021 for $1.2 million. Sold in 2023 for $1.1 million. So a small 8% drop there. A 4.0 sold for $117,000 in 2020, then sold for $264,000 in 2022, and the last sale in 2024 went up to $288,000. So a couple years of increases there, but overall, since the 2020 sale, it's up 146%. So big gains there. All right, 2.5. So a lot of Batman 1 number sales here. We have 3 more grades to look at. 2.5 sold for $270,000 in 2022, dropped to $215,000 in 2023, and then dropped again in 2024 to $156,000. So overall, a 42% drop on that grade. A 1.8 sold for $180,000 in 2022, dropped to $144,000 in 2023, and then dropped all the way down to $84,000 in 2025. So a 53% drop on that grade. And finally, last but not least, a 1.5 sold for $78,000 in 2020, jumped all the way up to $108,000 in 2024, which was a 38% increase. But then from 2024 to 2025, it dropped back down to $84,000. But overall, it's still up 8% since the 2020 sale, all right? And that's a comparison I'm looking for here. So that's Batman number 1. I feel like Batman number 1 is a much bigger key than Superman number 1. Like I said, Superman number 1, no big first appearances there. Who's the first appearance in Batman number 1? The Joker, arguably one of the greatest villains of all time in comic book history. So maybe that has something to do with it. Again, my opinion, much bigger key than Superman number 1. So, all right, some good news there. Unfortunately, that is going to be the only good news for this video, because the last book we're going to look at is All-Star number 8. First appearance of Wonder Woman, right? Great character. All right, here we go. 9.4. So we talked about this on some of the other books. If you have a really high grade like a 9.4, like we saw on Batman number 1, right? Continues going up in price. What happened with All-Star Comics number 8? Well, in 2022, a 9.4 sold for $1.6 million. In 2024, it sold for $1.5 million. So a drop of 7%, pretty close to even, but nonetheless, still a drop. All right, let's move our way down the list. An 8.0 sold for $200,000 in 2020. Sold again in 2023 for $180,000, 10% drop. 6.0 sold for $66,000 in 2022. Sold again in 25 for $60,000, a 9% drop. So these aren't huge drops, but nonetheless, they keep going down. 4 more grades we have to go through here. 5.5 sold for $75,000 in 2021. Then sold for $66,000 in 2024, and then sold for $55,000 in 2025. Overall, a 26% drop. That book looks like it just keeps going down. 5.0 sold for $93,000 in 2022, dropped to $56,000 in 2024, 40% drop. And then the 3.5 and the 2.0 both had sales in 2020, had another sale in 2025, and they both dropped by 9%. So overall, kind of a bloodbath for first appearance of Wonder Woman, All-Star Comics number 8. All right, so that's it. Those are the 5 books we're looking at here. I, again, argue those are the 5 biggest key issues in DC Golden Age history. You could throw some other books in there too, like First Green Lantern, First Flash, things like that. But I wanted to take what I feel are probably the most popular ones right now. And if we do Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and maybe I'll add those on at a future date, right? We'll see if they kind of have the same trend or if they fare a little bit better. But again, disclaimer, I said this at the beginning, and I'll say it again. I'm going to do another video for Golden Age, and I'm going to do pre-code horror. And I would bet my bottom dollar that we are going to see a different outcome on pre-code horror when we take like the biggest keys in the pre-code era, especially horror. I think it's going to be different. And I know a lot of you on here that follow me and watch my videos, you'll agree, because you know, right, if you're fans of pre-code horror, you know those books are, almost all of them are forever increasing in value. I don't know if that'll continue, but we'll see. And we'll do some other genres as well, right? We'll do crime. Crime kind of fits into pre-code horror, so I don't know how I'm going to split that out. But nonetheless, this is the data. These are the sales. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts, right? Do I think Golden Age comic books are crashing? No, not at all. That's not the purpose of this. The only point is, people have been asking me to do a video on Golden Age and to show how these big DC keys have been doing over the years. And now you know, all right? Doesn't mean they're gonna keep going down in value, but it looks like, I think you could conclude with, you know, mid to lower grades, there's a chance that some of these books will keep going down in value, right? Collectors, especially the ones with a lot of money, are being more finicky with their money, and they're looking for the higher grades, the ones that there are less of, harder to get their hands on, and that's really the only place where you see these big increases are with those higher grades. So we'll see. Again, let me know your thoughts. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, have a great day.